attention.
Commissioner Mullen is on the phone.
Yep. Good morning. It is March 8th, and we're in the Commissioner's quarters for a regular meeting. We have two commissioners in the meeting room, one on telephone. We have the administrator and the clerk of the board. So at this time, I'll call the meeting to order. If you'd please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is Potts and Associates. Are they on the phone?
Yes, sir.
All righty, go ahead.
Oh, boy. Well, good morning, and thanks for the time today. I'll start out with some bills and kind of interest that I know you guys have some concern about and what's going on with them. Specifically, as I mentioned in my update, Senate Bill 5078, which addresses high-capacity magazines, passed the legislature and passed concurrence on both sides. So they did put that bill, it's headed to the governor's desk. The interesting thing about this bill, we know that the high-capacity magazine legislation in the past has been struck down in California, the federal courts, and actually in the bill analysis, they outlined that restricting magazine capacity is unconstitutional. However, what they did with this bill and their approach now is to work through Department of Commerce and basically put restrictions on the sale, transfer, not necessarily restrictions on the actual magazines, but restrictions on, commerce around them. You can't buy them online, any of that stuff. There's some big problems with the bill just in general. How do they even know what you're going to do? How do they know how many you had before this thing started? I think we're going to see some constitutional challenges to this thing, and we're just going to have to ride it out. I don't really know what's going to happen. I'm sure the NRA and others are already looking at it. So that's the first one. The other one that's firearms related that did pass is House Bill 1630. House Bill 1630 got amended a whole bunch of times. Long story short, this bill prohibits the open carry of weapons in general, or prohibited weapons, I believe is the language they use. They're not real clear about that. Anywhere where a public board meeting may be held, that's a school board or a commissioner board or, whatever, name it. It also requires you as county commissioners or any board, school board, whatever, all the way to whoever it is, to post wherever the meeting will be held, that these weapons are not permitted. There's some questions. Does that include a stick or a baseball bat or, a pocket knife? I mean, where's the line? It's kind of unclear, which is really, really not awesome for us. The other problem is, it's also not necessarily clear, how long you have to prohibit the open carry of weapons in these areas. Let's say you have a Grange Hall that you just happen to have maybe a commissioner's meeting at or a school board meeting. Does that mean that you can never open carry in the Grange Hall? Or is it just during the meeting? The bill isn't very specific about that. The other thing, it does allow exemptions for law enforcement officers and concealed carry permit holders. This is another one of those big charged issues. This is really problematic for us, specifically because it, in effect, increases where gun-free zones are, and it's not specific about it. Reading the testimony and listening to testimony and looking at the bill analysis, again, we have, there's probably some constitutional issues with this. It's ridiculously hard to enforce, and, realistically, it's probably not going to do anything to combat crime. especially gun violence. So that's those two. Another one that was a good one that passed is 5624, House Senator Warnick's bill, just extending the livestock inspection fee program where it is right now. I know that the fees in terms of the cattle producers and feeders and cattlemen, it's a little higher than what they would prefer, but at least it didn't go up. There was a lot of talk of increasing those fees, so they've locked the fees in for a little while longer, another year. So that's a good thing, at least for us. The GMA bills, one of the positives here with a lot of the GMA bills is they did strip out most of the language talking about climate change specifically. A lot of the nebulous kind of onerous stuff that was really rough for us, they were able to pull most of that out. And the worst bill in terms of language, which was 1117, that specifically addressed net ecological gain in projects, and that was a salmon bill. And there was a lot of controversy around, are we saving salmon or are we addressing net ecological gain? In committee, they finally said, if we strip out the net ecological gain, it gets rid of the whole principle behind this. And, you're going, all right, well, that's pretty rough. So that bill did die along, and the language died with it, obviously. In terms of the GMA bills, 1099 was never really good for us. They decided not to concur on that one, so unless they change your mind, that one's dead. 5275 was Senator Short's bill. That one helped us out a little bit. Everything was watered down as it came out, but, it could have been worse. And then 1241 was GMA planning. That one did pass as well. Long story short, kind of like I said, they did strip out most of the climate planning, the climate language that was a little bit too far reaching on these. So the .09 money, that one's, I don't know what's going to happen with .09. It's looking like it's probably not going to come back around this year. There was a meeting held directly with the Speaker, Speaker Jenkins, talking about the Public Works Assistance Fund. And that meeting was basically a waste of time, is what I was told by the commissioners that participated. Commissioner Hutzel out of Lincoln County, been working with the Public Works Board for a lot of years. He said, I shouldn't have even been there. And then it was, we're going to have to figure out something with respect to how we deal with these, I guess, revenue-generating funds, because the Public Works Assistance Fund, as you guys know, when you borrow money from it, you pay it back, and that money stays in the account, and it's really intended to fund small works and, just public works. It's an assistance fund. That's what it really is, but the state keeps stripping that. They put it towards education or they put it towards transportation, when really it's a local control issue. And to change that, to make it so the state could not take that money from us, it would be a constitutional amendment. Commissioner Hutzel has done a lot of work and actually drafted a very good amendment that would be applicable there and really help us out. So far it hasn't ever really been seriously considered. It might be something we want to work on over the interim a little bit more intensively than we have in the past. Try and get some more conversations started around, giving the county some actual reference. In terms of WASAC and the conversations we're starting to have now, not just within WASAC, but with individual county lobbyists, we're starting to address how we are going to communicate kind of with the evolving Democratic Party right now. It's starting to be splintered internally, with the extreme liberal left and then what we would consider a more traditional Democratic partisan politician. But that far left is extremely noisy, and I don't think they're going to go away. And we need to figure out how to communicate with them. And across the board, with every lobbyist from the county through, the big businesses, Amazon, eBay, Boeing, whatever, they're having trouble communicating with these individuals. So we need to figure out how to do that. That's a big topic of conversation here over the interim. And then in addition, behind that, the conversation is increasingly focused around unfunded mandates. How are we going to address unfunded mandates, and what leverage can the counties have to be able to force the state into funding some of these projects, or, saying, hey, we're not going to do it. The ballot box decision, it was mostly unhelpful. The attorneys are looking at that decision in terms of, they split it out. Well, the state has their responsibility for election costs, and the county has their responsibility for election costs. There may be some applicability across issues, but that distinction between state and county responsibility for the cost of these things is important, and in some cases it may be of help to us. But there will probably be another lawsuit required to address unfunded mandates, and with how long it took to get this last one done, I don't know how long it'll be before we have another good case to make. So we're in the last couple days. The final day official session is going to be this Thursday. What they'll probably do is earlier in the day, start a whole bunch of bills, open them up on the rostrum in the House and the Senate chambers for consideration, and they'll set them all down, and then maybe they'll work and be done right, at 5 or 6 o'clock when they're supposed to. They might work all night. It's hard to say, but because of how they are transferring money and setting up the budgets, specifically with the transfer from the operating budget to the capital and transportation budgets, they're going to need some help. So, and by they, the Democrats are going to need some Republican votes. So they're going to have to come together somewhere to get this done if they're going to go home with a budget on time. So with that, are there any questions on your guys' side, anything that you'd like to know more about, any comments?
Commissioners, questions?
Yeah, Zach's Commissioner Pack. There's, starting with Representative Fye and Senator Elias' debate over the transportation bill and the $1.5 billion coming out. I'm just curious whether or not there's been any more discussion in like the last 12 to 18 hours that you've heard on MOTCA, the Model Toxic Control Act. They were looking about trying to substitute MOTCA funds instead of the Public Works Trust Fund account dollars, with the idea that they somehow think that because they can't legally do a 6-cent tax on fuel going to other states, that somehow that revenue still has to be protected, even though it was not legal revenue to start with. So bottom line, have you heard any more talks about shifting MOTCA funds in place of the Public Works Trust funds they're trying to take?
Any more beyond, it sounds like that's what they're going to do? No. I haven't heard any alternatives. I have heard, kind of scuttlebutt saying, well, they probably planned it this way. And Elias and Fye were basically oblivious to what was going on, and, it was kind of planned that, oh, hey, these other states are going to get really unhappy when we try and tax them for gasoline, and this is their fallback. So beyond that, no. It does sound like that is their plan, though.
Okay. Well, as of the Wasatch meeting, LSC discussions yesterday, it sounded like there was still some effort to try and get at the Public Works Trust Fund, and that the MOTCA idea was maybe losing favor. So if you hear anything today, because I think it'll be over by tomorrow, please let me know.
I will do that. I'm going to connect with a few people here and see if I can get any more up-to-date information, see if anybody's on the inside of those conversations.
And then I just add a comment for the general public, and that is that for more than a dozen years, I've been watching the legislature each session, and it's been in lean years, and it's been in years when we had a lot of revenue. And this year, revenue appears to be off the charts compared to anything I've ever seen. Plus, you add the federal infrastructure funds and the federal COVID relief funds, and I've never seen this much money floating around in Olympia, and I've never seen so much energy putting into finding a way to spend it instead of putting some of it into the rainy day fund that they've eradicated in recent years. It's probably not a great illustration, but I've never seen anything like it since you've seen a school of tuna going after bait fish. It looks pretty much the same. They're all just competing, and it's really it's unfortunate. They're spending an awful lot of our money, and that word isn't getting out enough. So I'm just throwing that out on the table. This was a great year when they could have cut taxes. They could have backed off on a number of areas. They could have put money into the rainy day fund, and they're just running rampant looking for places to spend it. So just my opinion, of course. Thank you.
Commissioner Mullen, do you have any questions?
No questions at this time. Thank you.
So Zach, I asked you 2 weeks ago about Speaker Jenkins banning any prayer in the name of Jesus. Is that true?
Unofficially they would. Unofficially they would like to, but I don't think that they can actually do that.
Okay, so she is pushing for that then.
That is what I hear. I have not personally heard it directly from her mouth, so it is hearsay, but that is what I hear.
Okay. And along the lines of a very unhealthy environment, as Commissioner Peck is related to there, when you give government this kind of authority over your tax funds and an unlimited source, they get out of control, and you won't be able to reel them in until you're bankrupt. So I'd say get ready for a long, hard ride. Well, I appreciate it, Zach. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I will follow up with you guys about the next conversation we have and, some interim planning. It will be a little bit difficult this year because we do have a big election coming up. So in terms of planning and bill sponsorship, we can work some, there are some, I guess you'd call them safe seats that we can work on, for getting some ideas through. But we're really not going to know who we're going to be dealing with until November because by the looks of it, there's going to be a lot of upset going on.
All righty, appreciate it. Thank you, Zach.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Next on the agenda is the approval for the February 15th, 2022 Commissioner meeting minutes. Is there any additions, corrections?
No.
Commissioner Mullen?
No.
Okay.
No.
Let it be known that it's been approved by consensus. Next is the office business, approval of the vouchers.
Move for approval of fund expenditures in the amount of $636,591.05 as presented to the board for approval, signed by the auditor's office and the county administrator.
I'll second that.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Move for approval of salary clearing payroll, emergency management payroll, total amount of $1,004,889.11 as presented to the board for approval and signed by two representatives of the auditor's office.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, next we move down to the consent agenda. I believe there are 9 items on the consent agenda.
Move for approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second, and I have one question, and that is on I think it's 8. And is Derek in the room? Derek, I've looked through this, and I cannot find what AHBL stands for. Could you please enlighten me what that acronym stands for? That's a
Honestly, I don't really, I apologize, but I don't know that either. It's just, we've always referred to them as AHBL. That's Nicole.
AHBL.
and-
That's the name of the company.
Right.
Right.
But what's
The
it stand
contract.
for?
It is probably the names of the principals of that organization.
I can definitely get you that
That's their
information.
commonly known name, though, is AHBO.
They're always referenced.
That's their business name on their letterhead, so I think
Yeah,
whether it stands for something or not, it's just AHBL.
right. It's not me using an acronym. That's how
Okay.
they're referenced.
All right. There's been a motion and a second to approve consent items 1 through 9. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, next we move down to the Commissioner Administrator updates. Keith?
Yes. Participated in the Wasatch call yesterday and had some conversations with our reps at Wasatch. Just a little bit more highlight on the .09 fund that Zach mentioned. There were 2 bills affecting that, one of which appears to be dead and one of which appears to be moving forward. Both are of a concern. The first one that does not appear to be going anywhere, that appears to be dead, is the extension of the date for .09 funds to go through 2054. There's been an effort over the past couple of years to make that a date certain so all counties that participate in that know exactly when it's going to expire. The current statute reads that it's 25 years after the county first adopts it, and that creates kind of a checkerboard pattern across the state depending on which county you're talking about, and there was a desire to bring those all into the same time frame. That helps with bonding for those funds if a county wants to do that. But as I said, that legislation appears to not be passing. The other piece is related to an expansion of the uses of the .09 funds to include workforce housing. There's some reluctance to support that because there is certainly a need for housing related funds in today's economy across the states, not just Franklin County, but it's in King County and other counties across the state. So that was probably driving the desire to include .09 funds. The concern with that is that those projects could eat up and absorb a lot of .09 fund and take it away from true economic development activities. So we have some concerns about that piece of legislation. I've also had some meetings with our folks at Planning and Building relative to fire inspection services. We are seeing a need for some additional expertise in the area of making sure that the International Building Code that we are required to follow and the fire code that is part of that, we can meet those inspection services to make sure that our commercial properties are safe before occupancy occurs. Working on attended the BIPIN Executive Committee. The Bi-County Police Information Network is undergoing a major rewrite of its software and application for law enforcement and jail services to have access to data related to warrants and prior arrest records. And so this is a regional effort that we're working on with Benton County and all of the cities in both Benton and Franklin County to make sure that that project moves forward and is successful. We approved the 2022 budget at our last meeting and feel like that project is on target so far, and it's continuing to move forward. And then I met with the other county administrator and city manager in Benton County and Franklin County to talk more about the committee that we're forming for mental health and putting together a process by which we identify those people to bring before the board for approval.
So question on the International Building Code. I want clarity on that. That is because we are in the Growth Management Act?
No, not directly.
Well, don't we have a Washington State Building Code and a United States Building Code?
Yeah, we are
Why are we not
obligated.
following those?
Yeah, we are. We're obligated in Franklin County Code to adopt, or we have adopted the International Building Code as our standard for building standards.
Because of, why did we adopt it? Growth Management Act, correct?
I don't think the Growth Management Act directly requires us to follow the International Building Code. That's the one that we have adopted, and that's the one that is used across the country.
I've researched it. I think we need to look into that a little deeper because we have a Washington State Building Code and a United States Building Code, which are far better than the International Building Code.
As I understand the International Building Code, it was adopted primarily in the United States first, and we've been trying to get other countries to adopt the International Building Code
Okay.
because of the health and safety reasons that it's required. But yeah, we're certainly happy to look into it and answer questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Peck?
So the regular schedule for this year's legislative session in Olympia is what we call a short session, 60-day, scheduled to run out on Thursday of this week. And typically the last week and a half of session is pretty much focused on trying to figure out where the legislature is going as they're making their final decisions on bills. So that's where most of my time has been spent this week as one of the state co-chairs for the Legislative Steering Committee, which is part of the State Association of Counties. We work with the legislature representing the 39 counties on these bills. And for those of you who hear these bill numbers and you think, well, gee, it really doesn't mean anything to me, there are thousands of bills that get dropped every year. There are hundreds that impact counties, at least, if not more. And then you get down to 50 or so that really have the most potential for impact, and those are the ones that the Legislative Steering Committee really tracks the most closely, and all the ones you've heard discussed today are in that group. But I've had no less than probably half a dozen meetings in the last week with my counterparts at the Legislative Steering Committee. I will tell you that the 39 counties, when we come together and we all agree on a bill and we go to the legislature and we say, look, the 39 counties all oppose this bill, it carries a lot of weight. But sometimes on bills, there will be people in one county that are very much on one end of the spectrum on that particular bill, and folks in another county that are in another end of the deal. So I bring that up so that if you, in the future or even now, have questions about bills, feel free to reach out to me. I understand the reason that WASAC doesn't chase after all of them is because we have to serve the needs of all 39 counties. This week also had Greater Columbia Behavioral Health Board meeting. It was my understanding that Chairman Didier was going to join us. We didn't have the pleasure of your company this week, but maybe you'll join us at a future meeting. And that's really all that's of note for this week. Thanks.
Commissioner Mullen?
Yes, had a special board of health meeting for employee review. Ben Franklin Transit Planning and Marketing Committee talked about using social media to track concerns and comments on the Ben Franklin Transit, and also talked about installation of new bus pads. Had the WHUF weekly briefing on the proposal for the bridge crossing the Columbia at Vancouver, which is about 6 years out. And then also met with local residents and more concerns about the contract of Lords that was canceled. We're not hearing any complaints against Lords, but people want to know why and who instigated the complaint that brought forward the canceling of the contract. And that is all for this week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I had the Ben Franklin local emergency meeting. Also had the Ben Franklin operation and maintenance meeting. Had the special board meeting for the Board of Health on employee evaluation. And then I wasn't able to join the advisory Greater Columbia Behavioral Advisory meeting because I was on the Columbia River Policy Advisory Group quarterly meeting, which I didn't know that it conflicted with it, with adjudication coming up with water rights. I thought that was very much important to be in attendance of. So I chose to be on the Columbia River Policy Advisory Group instead of the Greater Columbia Behavioral meeting. And the next meeting I will be at. So with that, we'll move on down to the next item on the agenda, which is Certificate of Appreciation for Piper Mitchell. And it's with a heavy heart that I read this letter because she is so important to this courthouse. For 34 years of service to Franklin County. Piper, on behalf of Franklin County, I'd like to express our gratitude for your faithful service in the Franklin County Assessor's Office starting August 3rd of 1987 through March 31st of 2022 as the Chief Deputy Assessor. Your contributions to the county and your years of service have been invaluable. Please accept this certificate of appreciation for your dedication and professionalism. We hope you know just how much we respect you and have valued you as a colleague. You will be missed at Franklin County. I understand that Piper has already offered up to come back on her own time and help other people get acquainted to this position and be as effective as she has been. So Piper, I thank you for your service. And I would ask the other commissioners to please, and Administrator, please, your comments.
Pausing to give Commissioner Mullen first opportunity. Piper, you've been here longer than anybody else I know, and for the entire time I've been here, you've been the go-to person in that office. We've had various leaders come through, Steve Marks and Pete McInderfer, but I think those of us in the courthouse, when we had the toughest problems, we always kind of tracked you down. So that says a lot when there's somebody in an organization that becomes the go-to, and it's not just the 35 years of experience and having seen most of what there is to see. It's the attitude and the professionalism and the willingness to stop what you're doing and go help somebody. That's kind of been your hallmark as far as I'm concerned in the time I've been here. I appreciate all you have done, and I suspect will continue to do for Franklin County, and I think sounds like a well-deserved change of schedule for you. So thanks very much.
Keith?
Yeah, I'd briefly echo what has been said, both in the recognition and Commissioner Peck's. When I started here a few years ago, Piper was one of the first people that I relied upon for expertise in a very complex and technical area of the law. And it's important to recognize that Piper has kept us out of court and saved us a lot of money. Each year as we go through the adoption of the budget, there's a particular sequence of legislation that needs to be adopted by this board. And I have used Piper as a crutch to make sure that we do that correctly. She has always been very willing to prepare those documents, and I'm sure she's eager to help me do that again this year. But I would echo the appreciation that's been expressed on behalf of Franklin County, and wish her the best in her retirement, and know that she won't be a stranger, but she's always welcome in this courthouse. Thank you.
Commissioner Mullen, would you like to say a few words?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate everything you've done for the county, Piper, and I wish you the best in your retirement. And I think it says a lot that you're willing to come back and help out when there's questions. And we really do appreciate everything you've done. And I wish you the best in your retirement. Thank you.
So Piper, if you would please. I'd like to present you with this. On behalf of Franklin County.
Thank you.
Piper, if you would, we'd like to get a picture with you. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you all very much. I've worked, years with quite a few different boards, 4 assessors that I have to thank. They've all taught me something. I worked for Shirley for 6 years, and Steve for almost 25, and 2 for Peter, and a year for John. So, like I said, they've all taught me something. But most of all, I have to thank all the employees. Hardworking, dedicated, they're not here for the fame or fortune, and it's not just the employees of my office, but every other office in this courthouse, because it takes us all to get the job done. So everybody, like I said, they're not here for the fame and fortune. It's definitely a sense of service that they all have. So once again, thanks. It's been a great ride. So, but now I'm going to enjoy my grandkids.
So if we could, we get a picture with you? Your staff, too, please. If you'll just come up. We'll stand up. It's not my idea. This is the clerk of the board. So you guys will stand in front of us. We'll get a picture. As long as I'm short enough here first.
Have you just, there you go. Perfect. Now I can see everybody. 1, 2, 3. Oh, come on, smile, Piper. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
I like this.
All right, next on the agenda is public comment. Anybody for public comment?
George Dockstetter. I want to congratulate Piper. She didn't learn from the assessors, they learned from her. And she kept us all on the straight and narrow when we came in with our plans, with our open space and whatnot. She ruled the roost and she did an outstanding job.
Thank you, George. Any other for public comment?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
So I will be leaving March 31st at the juvenile court, and so I wanted to introduce you to Dave Wheeler, who will be the interim juvenile court administrator while the judges are going through the recruitment process, basically.
You're leaving.
I am.
You're retiring?
I am.
You're too young.
I know. That's great. That's a good thing. So anyway, Dave's been with us for 30 plus years and knows the juvenile court inside and out. So you have a good team over there, and he'll take care of things. So,
Well, Darrell, thank you for all you've done for the Juvenile Justice Center.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
Thank you. Is there anybody on the phone, Keith?
No.
Anybody else for public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll move down to administration office business. Keith?
Yeah, a couple of things just scheduling wise. We have been requested to set up some meetings with the commissioners individually from representatives from the Colville Indian Tribe regarding their property that they have here in Franklin County. I'd like to set those up on the 22nd of this month, March, 2 weeks from today. If your schedules will allow that, I'll have Karen and I kind of coordinate with you on your schedules to spend probably an hour with them
Each?
sometime, yeah, during that day. And then after those conversations, we've had some opportunity to draft some language. We'll be looking at perhaps an MOU with the tribe regarding kind of expectations of what they have for us and what we would have for them relative to the development of that project. Then the other item, we'd like to schedule our next night meeting on the 12th of April. And we don't have a specific topic to discuss, but I'm sure there's several things that will come up between now and then, or that will be ripe for some public comment that will allow people to come in the evening. We anticipate having that in this room because we expect that the governor's mask mandates will have been lifted and we'll be back to some sense of normalcy and be able to hold that
Don't
meeting
count your chickens before they hatch.
I know that's dangerous to do that, but expectation is by April 12th, we'll be able to meet once again in person. So those are the two items that I had.
All righty. Well, thank you, Keith. So we move on down to public comment. Is there anybody else for public comment? on any topic? All right, seeing none, it looks like nobody on the phone, right, Keith?
No.
Okay, seeing none, we're headed into a closed session for collective bargaining.
Yeah, I think let's do that closed session before the executive sessions.
Oh,
That
okay,
way we-
I'm sorry, I got the updated
No, no,
agenda. right
you're
here.
good.
Executive.
The
You want to do the
executive-
closed first?
I want to do,
The executive
the
session.
only reason I want to do the closed session now is because the
Right.
timing for our outside counsel, I think he's going to be available about 10 o'clock. So if we could do the closed session first.
Yeah, we're ahead of schedule, so good deal. All righty, so you want to call that, Keith?
I do, yes. I'm calling for a closed session under RCW 42.30.140, paragraph 4, subparagraph B, to discuss collective bargaining. Ask the members of the board, the sheriff and HR director, the clerk, and myself be allowed to participate. And Eric, is 20 minutes enough, do you think?
We'll do it under 15.
Okay, let's set 20 minutes aside with possibility coming out early.
All righty, Eric, shoot away.
Alrighty then.
The mic's off, Karen? Somebody's typing and has their speaker on. We've come out of closed session, and we're back into regular session at this point in time. And we have, Keith, what do you want to do here? Huh? Yep, door's open. What do you want to do?
I might suggest a recess for 5 minutes so we can reset the phone.
Okay.
And make sure that we're timing our
Meeting,
session with
yep.
outside counsel.
Okay. So we're
Mr.
going.
Chairman,
Sean, go ahead.
I just sent the communication to our outside counsel for the call-in information, so they should be able to call in directly when the board is ready if we want to take a brief recess.
Okay, I will wait by the phone for when I hear the beep. Before you do.
And we'll take a 5-minute recess and readjoin at 9:53. Let's go with 9:55. Okay, we're back in session, and we're waiting for our next executive session.
Is Jen also on the line already?
I don't think Jen's on the line. Jen, you're not on the phone, are you?
Yep.
This is Jen, I'm on the line.
Morning, Jen.
Morning.
We're just waiting for council, Jen.
Okay, thanks.
Is that Francis that just called in?
Hello.
Hey, good morning. This is Keith Johnson. I'm the county administrator in Franklin County. Who all do you have on the phone?
I have 3 lawyers in my office. Amber, who runs our appellate department. Amanda, who's one of my partners that's handling the voting rights cases, and then there's Francis Floyd.
We're about ready to go into executive session, Floyd. If you just want to hold on for a second, we'll make the record. And then, how much time do you think would be reasonable, or how much time do you have?
I have 15 to 20 minutes, and that should be adequate.
Okay. So if we could set the exec session for 20 minutes, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman? 20 minutes with the right to come out early.
So at this time, Keith, would you please take us into executive session?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we should make it perhaps a little longer, just because our attorneys leave us doesn't mean we won't have conversation.
Right,
So-
right.
And we can always come out early.
Eric's day.
So I would request an executive session under RCW 42.30.110, paragraph 1, subparagraph I, litigation, potential litigation. Would ask that members of the board, myself, the clerk, the prosecuting attorney, and chief civil deputy, and representatives from outside counsel be allowed to participate for up to 30 minutes with the option of coming out early.
Okay, we've come out of executive session, and Keith, I believe we have one more executive session.
Yes. I would request an executive session under RCW 42.30.110, paragraph 1, subparagraph G, review performance of a public employee. Would ask the members of the board, myself, and the HR director be allowed to participate. Set up for 30 minutes with the option of coming out early.
You want me to go grab Barrett?
I just sent him a text.
Okay.
So
I'll
he should come.
head that way.
Thank you.
All right.
30 minutes, so starting at 10:30.
Okay, we've come out of executive session. We're back to regular session. Is there any business for the good of the county? I'd like to make a motion that our clerk of the board be moved from a 15 grade to a 16 grade at a step 6.
I'll second the motion.
There's been a motion and a second for a movement for our clerk of the board from a grade 15 to a grade 16 to a step 6. Discussion.
I'm going to offer that I think that the motion is inappropriate at this point since we've just requested additional data and input from our HR team that will give us the data necessary to ensure that all of our employees are treated fairly and equitably in the salary compensation arena, and that to make this move preliminary to that has a number of attendant risks. One of them will be a perception, whether it's accurate or not can be left to the judgment of the individual, but a perception that if you work for the county commissioners, you get preferential treatment. Again, a perception, not claiming that's the case. And you will see a domino effect of other positions that have equal responsibilities that are not at that grade level, requesting grade increases. And if we decline those without good merit and explanation, we put ourselves in jeopardy with our employees' trust and confidence, and potentially in legal difficulty with disparate treatment for equal work. That's my view. Thank you.
So it's been told to me that you made the comment that if she got the International Institute Municipal Clerks certification for multiple municipal clerk, that you would give her a pay raise. Is this true?
I have no recollection of that, and no one commissioner has authority to give anybody a pay raise, and I suspect that if I did say something to that effect, it might have been that I would be supportive or would entertain it. Absolutely. But this process of coming out of executive session while research is still ongoing to ensure fair and equitable treatment for our employees and to throw a motion out smacks of favoritism, frankly, and that's how it'll be perceived by other employees. And I've already articulated what some of the other risks are. So if you wish to move forward, go ahead. And with respect to your queries and questioning, I'm not obligated to play Q&A with you, Chairman. If you want to ask questions of other people, go ahead. Thank you.
Well, when you give somebody your word, I would hope it'd be good. And it was told to me that you gave your word.
I think we call this hearsay.
No, I heard it from the former commissioner, Bob Cook, this morning.
I think that's what's called hearsay.
And
I heard it from a friend.
No, that's Bob Cook, former chairman of this, and he told me that you were in his office. Would that be declared a illegal meeting, sitting in his office talking about county business?
Yeah, it would be if that actually happened.
Okay. So there's been a motion and a second to move our clerk of the board to grade 16, step 6. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay?
Let it be known that there has been a movement for the clerk of the board to level 6, grade 16. Now, is there any other business for the good of the county? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.